Hi, I'm William Seymour, and today I'm going to be presenting our paper on informing the design of privacy-empowering tools for the connected home. When we think about conceptualizations of the home, we often see it as a refuge that we can retreat to and be ourselves, a personal castle. Amongst other things, the home serves as an important space in which to decompress, somewhere where no one is watching or judging you. Indeed, when you invite someone into your home, there's still usually a demarcation between public and private. Guests don't have the run of the house after being invited through the front door. However, slowly but surely that's beginning to change, and I don't mean that people are going to start wandering into your house. Well, at least not natural persons. Increasingly popular, smart devices are brilliant in that they allow us to automate tasks around the house, access information with little effort, and can entertain us. Some of Alexa's jokes are even funny. But in order to get access to this, you need to accept devices and their terms into your home. This often involves capturing interactions, analyzing what you say, mapping your house, or having access to your smartphone. Part of the issue is that people aren't aware of what's going on. And to this end, there's a lot of media coverage about devices that capture and sometimes also leak private and intimate information. Studies that observe and show disclosures from people's apps usually find that the initial response is feeling creeped out or outright shock, even though there's a background awareness of privacy and security problems. Seeing what's happening to you in your home is powerful, but quickly this shock turns into dejected acceptance. It's the same for everyone. I have nothing to hide. It's too late to do anything about it, or I can't do anything about it. When we consider the reasons why this is a hard problem to navigate and reason about, there are three main issues that need to be addressed. Firstly, you need to have detailed, specific knowledge about what the devices in your home are doing and the companies that they're talking with. You can't do much about what you don't know. Secondly, you need an understanding of the bigger picture. Why do companies make devices that do this? Are all disclosures equally bad? What about data that goes to different jurisdictions? This kind of education is something that doesn't come up very often. Although here in the UK at least, we're beginning to see educational resources in schools that talk about the architectures and infrastructures that enable connected devices. Okay, so you know what your devices are doing. You have a pretty good understanding of why things are happening, and you find something you don't like. If you want to be able to do something about your privacy, then you need to have effective levers you can pull, either to tell devices to stop collecting and sharing, or to make them. And you need all three of these together. It's not enough to only give people powerful tools, or to educate them without the tools to make changes. In fact, this is exactly what leads to the dejected and downtrodden mindset that we saw earlier. I bet what's happening is bad, and even if I knew, I wouldn't be able to change it. With this in mind, we set out to explore potential solutions using what we call privacy-empowering technologies through the use of a technology probe. Technology probes are artifacts that are sent out into the unknown in order to see how people engage with a topic during everyday life. Our probe was created to answer social science questions about how people think about their connected privacy and what concerns they have, engineering questions regarding the data you need to do this and the feasibility of doing so with today's devices, and design questions about what features and representations work in this context. The probe, called Aretha, like R-E-S-P-E-C-T, never mind. The Aretha probe combines each of these three pillars to see how they might impact the ways that families engage with privacy in connected homes. The Aretha software is run on a mini PC attached to a keyboard and mouse. This is then situated somewhere prominent in the home and connected to the internet. Devices can be connected to Aretha's Wi-Fi hotspot, and traffic to and from those devices is analysed before being forwarded to the internet. The Aretha software is open source, and you can find it on GitHub. With this in mind, our first design goal was to make Aretha's visualizations of home network traffic clear and easy to interpret. We wanted to give users facts about how their devices were communicating over time, as seen here in terms of traffic volume per device and per external company, but also an aggregate, a view which was intended to present a sort of privacy risk profile for the household. This view also shows the geographic location of data destinations. To back up this specific knowledge about what devices are doing, Aretha also needed to help give context about how and why their devices operate as they do. We combined existing resources from organisations such as the BBC with our own content to create a curriculum that participants completed during the study, and these were illustrated with examples dynamically taken from each participant's network traffic. Finally, the probe needed to give people accessible and effective controls to manage their information flows. We elected to include a firewall-style rule system, whereby Aretha would translate high-level directives such as block all traffic from my iPhone to Facebook into lower-level directives that the system could enforce on the traffic passing through it. To test the probe hardware and software, we conducted a pilot deployment at the UK's building research establishment in a fully equipped smart home. 14 members of the public were invited to try Aretha and give feedback which informed the final version of the software. After a period of recruitment, we selected 3 participant households with a variety of inhabitants, devices, and technical knowledge. We deployed the probe in these participants' households for 6 weeks. Our initial visits included an entry interview to establish what participants currently thought about online privacy, what devices they had, as well as a discussion about what data the probe would be collecting. We then installed the equipment and helped participants to connect their devices. For the first 2 weeks, the probe operated passively, only showing visualizations of network traffic. After 2 weeks, we enabled the educational curriculum and asked participants to complete a short session every other day. We also conducted a brief check-in interview to capture responses that might otherwise be forgotten by the end of the study. After another 2 weeks, the firewall control was enabled, along with another check-in. Finally, at the end of the study, we visited the households again to conduct an exit interview. Here we asked about participants' experiences during the study, how they thought their perceptions and practices had changed, and what their responses were to their initial statements about privacy and smart devices. We also asked them what additional features they wanted to see on subsequent iterations of the probe. 2 researchers independently performed thematic analysis on the interview transcripts, meeting to review and merge themes to arrive at the final analysis. When analysing the data, we also triangulated events from the interviews with network traces collected by the probe. All of the materials of the study can be found on the Open Science Framework. All 3 of our households participated in the entirety of the study, during which the probe collected network traces each time devices connected to the internet. 4 main themes arose during the analysis, shown on the left here, which I'll now go over in depth. Over the 6 weeks of the study, we saw how our participants and their families developed their conceptions of what privacy was. Beginning with vague references to abstract threats, by the time of the exit interview they had begun to use concepts and vocabulary learned from the curriculum to describe the concrete risks that their household might face online. The increased awareness of data flows given by the probe, combined with underlying knowledge from the curriculum, highlighted decisions that would previously have been ignored. This, in turn, changed the way that the probe visualizations were interpreted, such as how P2 came to realize that over half the data from his devices was sent outside the EU, raising questions about how this might affect legal protections given under the GDPR. We also saw how the concerns of participants became much more personalized during the study. P1 used knowledge and information from the probe to devise an in-depth strategy for investigating the companies appearing on the display, including corporate structure and connections, and this helped him to align his device usage with his values. The curriculum content, as well as the background theme of data disclosures generated by the visualizations, prompted P3 to review other aspects of her online privacy. Measures such as preventing account details being shared outside of the family turned out to be easy steps they could take as a household that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. Indeed, as the study progressed, other members of our participants' households began to express an interest in the probe, and we found that it became a common frame of reference for discussions about privacy and security. Sometimes this involved building mental models through immediate feedback offered by the probe, and using the visualizations to associate online activities with data disclosures. At other times, members of the household would use the probe to hold each other to account over what was happening on the home network. Finally, conducting a home deployment foregrounded a number of issues around the use of privacy-empowering tools in a busy home environment. Participants were extremely hesitant to use the firewall controls offered by the probe, worried that it might break things in ways that weren't understandable, or that wouldn't become apparent until hours or days after entering a new rule, when they might not have time to fix it amongst the hectic reality of family life. This was made worse by the perceived interconnectedness of many services. It wasn't clear if disabling traffic to one company would break online experiences with others that use their services. So revisiting the design goals of the study, there was good evidence to suggest that our participant households gained significant awareness of data disclosures by their devices. In fact, they began to request additional features that would allow them to learn more, such as indications about the content of disclosures. Despite the fact that 74% of the traffic from our participants' households was concentrated in the top 3 companies, there was a clear bias towards concerns about breadth of disclosure over depth. This highlights familiarity as an important factor in our participants' threat analysis, with the top traffic destinations largely considered known quantities. The curriculum content did help to make this data more intelligible for our participants, but other factors prevented success in some of the households, such as P3's decision to delegate part of the learning process to their partner, who was usually responsible for managing technology in the house. Finally, it was clear that the firewall controls offered by Aretha failed to help participants action their newly formed privacy preferences, but participants did take this opportunity to develop their own means of control, such as P1's research strategy, or how P3 started conversations about family accounts and who they should be shared with. In terms of limitations, the exploratory nature of the probe made us opt for a smaller number of in-depth case studies, in order to give a more holistic understanding of how similar privacy-empowering technologies might be used in the wild. But being self-selecting early adopters, they were clearly not representative. I also want to point out that this configuration of the probe is not the only one, and given the responses to the firewall, it clearly wasn't the best. In the spirit of the technology probe methodology, I'd suggest that it serve instead as inspiration for future privacy-empowering tools. So to sum up, Aretha was successful in helping us understand how people can understand and interact with their connected devices in the context of privacy-empowering technologies. Even though it didn't meet all of the design goals, the shortcomings of the firewall were instructive in their own way. Aretha also serves as a reminder that there are other ways to engineer the connected home, and that even if devices do behave themselves, users might want their own way of verifying this. The results of the probe study are also cause for encouragement, showing that, provided with the right tools and scaffolding, people can engage and formulate their own privacy preferences and strategies. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them via email.